Yeah, so why don't we get into jump right into it here. So how did you get into the real estate business? I know you've got a pretty interesting story about how you got into the business, and but maybe just where did the passion for real estate and where did that sort of kindle, and what are the events that kind of led to you deciding to form Proactive Realty Group?
Well, I got into real estate 23 years ago, and at that time I was looking to rent an apartment, and I had money saved from working, and I went to rent an apartment, and a gentleman comes out as a small 5 unit building studio, all studios, and a gentleman who was in the unit that I thought was vacant came out and he says, "Hey, the owner's selling this property." And I knew nothing about real estate, and I said, okay. I said, so the guy kind of snarky. He says, yeah, so I'm selling this. The guy's selling the property. Uh, I said, well, what's the owner's name and phone number? He gave me the owner's name and phone number. I was in my mid 20s, and I called up the owner. His name was Julian Camo. And when I called him up, I said, I understand you're interested in selling your property. He says, I am. He says, give me 20,000 down and take over the note on a wrap loan, subject to. I knew what none of that meant. I said, okay. Um, so a couple days go by, and and he calls me. He says, look, he says, who's your agent? I said, I don't have an agent. I said, I need you to help me with this transaction. I'm new to real estate. I don't know much about it, but I do know how to verify if this is for real or not. He says, okay. He introduces me to an agent, Dave Sanderson. I meet him over the phone, and I then go into his office. Subsequently, about a day or two later, we sit down. He explains to me what subject to is. He explains to me what a wrap loan is. And he takes me by the hand. He says, look, he says, Van, I'm going to explain everything to you. I'm going to teach you everything I know about real estate. I said, well, I've always had a great interest in real estate because the house I grew up in, I was only taught, hey, walk the stage, get a high school diploma. That was it. So my
Hmm.
passion for real estate came from just not being exposed to it, in my early age, and then, as a kid, and then meeting this real estate agent who told me about, all the various ways you can get into property, having really excellent credit, and he telling me, hey, he say, boy, keep your credit straight. He's an older black man. Say, hey, keep your credit straight, and you'll be able to do what you need to do. You understand? I said, well, yes, sir. And so we went from there, and he taught me, most of what I know today. However, I've, of course, went to college